Time keeps on leaving and we keep on moving. When do we pass on our wisdom to the youth? My veteran story, lost arts discussions, fireside chats with a bourbon or two. It's time to hear the stories by our military veterans. Get yourself ready. It's the Lost Arts Podcast. The Lost Arts with Andrew Cox.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast. That podcast is giving a voice to our veterans. On today's episode, we will have part 2 with Marine Vietnam veteran Ron Dunning. But before we get into the episode, are you enjoying the podcast? Then consider becoming a TLA patron. That's the Lost Arts patron. It is through donations that we are able to continue recording the podcast and getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. Just go to the Lost Art website and click on the Become a Patron link at the top. If becoming a TLA patron doesn't work for you and you would rather give a one-time donation, then go to the Lost Art website and scroll down until you see the donations link. Any donation is appreciated. And as always, if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, then email me directly at thelostartwithandrewcox@gmail.com. Again, that's thelostartwithandrewcox@gmail.com. And as always, we do have merchandise for sale. We have hats, we have cups, we have all kinds of goodies. If you want to help support this podcast, then go to the website, click on the merchandise tab, and you can find some good merchandise. With that, we're going to jump into part 2 and continue on with Ron Dunning's story. Say that again.
I have a lot of, honestly speaking, man, I mean, like my involvement in my stories and stuff, I'm just giving you little tidbits of the stuff that I went through, when I was in the shelter, Warren Quinlan asked me to go to Washington, D.C. with him after hearing my story of how I got in the Marine Corps and that whole thing with the FBI and yada, 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 and my experience in the Marine Corps. I had to use Senator Kennedy and Senator Brooks to get out of the Marine Corps because of issues with racism on Camp Lejeune. Okay. And Warren Quinlan heard my story about all this. And he wanted me to go to DC to tell my story because honestly speaking, I got an undesirable discharge at Charentonable. I had issues with the Marine Corps because of racism at the time.
Yeah.
And the 6 Marines were all a lot of combat troops, but they were mainly black. And they stuck us in the furthest most part of Camp Lejeune. Okay. The furthest most part of Camp Lejeune. And we had to walk through 2 other areas that there were not a lot of nice guys in those other units. And there used to be fights and all kinds of crap during that time.
Wow.
I'm just sharing this with you, So when Warren heard my story of how I got into the Marine Corps and how I got out of the Marine Corps and using Senator Kennedy and Senator Brooks to fight the Marine Corps, and the Commandant of the Marine Corps heard about me at the time. And it was a pretty big thing, but they let me out because they didn't want a congressional investigation coming to ask them about that. In fact, my unit had a riot on the USS Enterprise during the time that they were on a med cruise. That's
Really?
Something else that people don't know about. Yes, man. Oh, yes. A lot of people don't know about this. It was hushed up. Okay. There was a riot on the USS Enterprise. It went dead in the water. It happened on a weekend. It hit the Sunday Globe. It was a blurb in the Boston Sunday Globe because they had to report it, but it was never really talked about. It was just in the paper and then done. It never hit the news. It never hit anything. I don't know how it made it into the paper, but it made it into the paper.
Wow.
But that really did happen. I didn't believe it happened, but later on I met a Marine that was in the 6 Marines and I asked him about it. He says, "Oh yeah, man." I said, "Wow, that's crazy on the Enterprise." He goes, "Yeah." He says, "Man," I said, "Well, how did it stop?" He says, "The captain turned the lights off and had the hatches locked down, then turned the air conditioning off. And that's how he broke the, yep." Now you think about it, you're down below deck with no lights and no air conditioning. You're going to come to your senses real quick.
Yeah.
So that's how they gain control over the ship again. Yep. That really happened, bro. So anyways, when I went up to DC, and went to this congressional investigation, Senator Kerry I forgot the senator's. There's not the Kerry that ran for president. It's another Senator Kerry. I just can't think of his name. But there was two Kerrys. He was in charge of this congressional investigation on bad paper discharges, and that's why I got invited there to speak about the problems of we had as veterans getting out with bad paper and blah blah blah. The congressman didn't even know that people that were veterans that didn't have an honorable discharge could not get services from the VA. Okay, so this, as the story goes, Warren Quinlan wrote a letter to DC about two prodigal sons that grew up in America. The first one, when the call to arms came, he went ahead and joined, and he came back broken, you know, and yada yada yada. He lives on the outskirts of the cities and underneath bridges and all that. He can't work, he can't get anything. He kicked out of the service. The other son ran away. Okay, and then after the war, he gets blanketed, what they call it, pardoned, and he comes back and his life is okay. And so Warren said, "Where's the justice in that?" And that's what got them to bring us up to the congressional hearing, you know?
Yeah.
And so basically, because of that hearing, they relooked at these discharges, and they basically came up with a plan that people could get their discharge renewed or revoked, changed around, reviewed. And so they reviewed a lot of people's discharges and were able to find out that some of these guys didn't deserve to get kicked out because of alcohol or whatever. And so they changed the discharges out. But yeah, I was part of that little bit of a scenario.
Huh. And what time frame was that? What years?
I want to say 72.
Okay.
Yeah, around
so it wasn't too long
1972.
after your military service.
Yeah, not too long after I got out. Yep.
Okay. Wow, that's very interesting. Was there anything else that you wanted to discuss or talk about on like your deployment? Anything there?
My best friend. I had lost a best friend there by the name of Nash. I met him when he met Nash in boot camp, and I remember he talked with a Southern drawl white guy, and he was from Atlanta. I remember saying, "Man," he says, "You know something?" After talking, he says, "You know something? I never met none of y'all till I came in the Marine Corps." I was like, "Excuse me, what the fuck you mean by that, bro?" He says, you people of color." I says, "Where are you from?" He said, "I'm from Atlanta." I said, "Atlanta? There's black people in Atlanta?" He says, "Yeah, but not where I live, man. I used to see y'all on TV, but I never really met none of y'all until I came to Marine Corps. Y'all ain't that bad." And so Nash and I became best friends, to be perfectly honest. We dug our first hole in Vietnam together. We became best friends. We sent letters home to our family. Anyways, he went up to Contien. I didn't. I went to the hospital. And when I came out, I remember the unit was out in the bush. I was out coming into the chopper, and they were taking out my platoon and stuff. And the LZ down in the green was getting incoming, and the chopper said, "We can't land because LZ is hot." When the chopper landed, I already been wounded, so I'm thinking, "Fuck, man!" It was very real to me at that time,
Yeah.
And this was the first time going out into the bush again after coming out of the hospital and stuff. So needless to say, my adrenaline level, my fear level was up there. When we landed, I'm all scared and everything. And someone came up to me and says, "Man, are you LA?" They called me LA because my family was in LA. So the nickname was LA, Okay. He says, "Are you LA?" I go, "Yeah." He says, "Oh man, I'm sorry, man." I go, "What?" He says, "Your buddy Nash, man." And when he pointed, the wash of the helicopter was knocking the elevator crest down. I see a Marine laying in the ground face down. And he said, "Man, your buddy Nash." And he pointed over at that body. And when I went over and looked at him, I couldn't believe it. Was like, it hadn't hit me yet. When everyone went over and got closer to look, he was laying, and a little bit of blood was trickling down from underneath the back of his helmet.
Yeah.
It had just skirted, a piece of shrapnel had just skirted the back of his helmet and went in and into his brain. What happened was, he had heard that I got out of the hospital. He had heard that I was coming up on the chopper, and he volunteered. This was their first, they had the LZ, and they got the
Mhm.
top of the hill. They set up the 81 mortar to give the LZ support. They fired, the first smoke that I saw was a spotter round. They didn't sink the base plate.
Oh no.
The first round went down to where it was supposed to. Then they fired for effect. The next 4 rounds landed in the LZ. It changed the angle of the fucking mortar tube.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
the next rounds landed in the LZ and killed 5 guys in the LZ. So that was my first experience dealing with someone with, actually it was the second one. Nash was there. Needless to say, the first one was while I was in the hospital. A guy by the name of Gomez, I sat next to on the plane that just got married. He was a Mexican American.
Mhm.
And I remember sitting on the plane as we're leaving El Toro, watching California disappear. And Gomez was sitting next to me. And he says, man, I don't think I'm ever going to come back to the country. And I remember Bonnie, hey, fuck that, man. We're coming back. We didn't
Yeah.
know. Well, while I was in First Med, get out of Camera Bay, getting ready to be released. I was in First Med, getting ready to be turned back to my unit. I remember the Army dude that was a nurse that was up there. He was talking to a buddy of his. Hey man, what are you doing? He said, oh man, I had to drop a piece of meat off over at that's what they called dead then. I had to drop a piece of meat off over at Graves Registration. He goes, yeah. He goes, yeah, man. We were out at what was it? It was Freedom Point or something in Da Nang. Anyways, he says, yeah, we were on a patrol and we took a sniper, one shot, the sniper round. Some new guy just took a bullet to his heart. Some guy by the name of Gomez. I heard the name Gomez.
Yeah.
He had just got here. Yada, 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 yada. Some dude named Gomez just got here about a month and a half ago. I'm thinking, month and a half ago, Gomez. No fucking way, man. This can't be the same guy. It can't be. So I asked him, I says, wait a minute, did Gomez what he looked like? He says, he's short. He just got here. I says, he just got here. He says, yeah. I says, where? He said, Graves Registration. So I said, hey, man, I think I know this guy. Can I go to Graves Registration? So that's the first time I ever saw that too. I remember going and seeing there were bunk beds with 3 layers, 3 size bunk beds with the green body bags laying on each bunk bed. I remember going in, they said, Gomez, yeah. And they found the bag and they zipped it open. And they had at the time it looked like shipping slip that you put on a trunk, shipping label and wrapped around his big toe. I unzipped it I zipped it from the feet down. It came up to his chest. And when they opened up his, so I could see his face and everything, I looked at his chest and he had a little burn hole on his chest where it had gone and hit his heart. And it was Gomez. So that was my first, that I actually knew before me getting out of the hospital. So all that happened within, a month and a half. Then I get out and then my best friend Nash took it in the LZ. So my issues with PTSD come from that end content.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And now speaking of that, you getting PTSD from that and those types of things. How did that affect you dealing with it and counseling and those types of things? Did that happen right away? Something like right got back, or was it later in life?
Well, in regards to the PTSD part, I mean, I'm not bad off like a lot of people, My issues mainly are because of the artillery. I have a problem. I had a problem sleeping. I have a service dog named Blue, by the way. Yeah.
Nice.
You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah. Hold on a minute. I'll show you. Hey, Blue. Here's his vest.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. You see that one there, right?
Yeah. Beware the owner.
You're right. I get tired of people saying, "Oh, look at the dog. What about the dog? Why do you need the dog?" It's, man, don't worry about the dog. The reason I have this dog is he keeps me happy. Hey, puppy, come here, Blue. Come on, puppy. Come on. I want someone to meet you, man. Come on. Yeah, come on out. He was nodding. So that's Blue.
Oh yeah.
There he is. Hey, puppy. He's a King Shepherd.
King Shepherd. How old is he?
He's 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was donated to me by a guy by the name of Sparky that was in my unit. that approached another Marine in Texas that raises German Shepherds. And he has some pretty famous dogs that he's raised. One of them was in a dog's world. It was a puppy in a dog's world by Disney or something. And I think another one of his shepherds, either it was Megan Levy or Max. I forget which one, but one of his dogs is in that. But anyways, Blue was donated to this guy Sparky. He wanted to give dogs to Marines with problems, you know. And so Blue's the first one in the program to graduate from the program, and I ended up getting him.
Very cool. Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, my PTSD is not that bad. It was basically not being able to sleep, and you know, it surfaced, you know, many years later, actually.
Yeah. So it really, for you, surfaced many years later. It came in the form of dreams and those types of things, or
dreams, you know, thoughts, you know, thoughts like that. I mean, a lot of anger, you know, a lot of anger. I mean, I used to have a lot of angry thoughts where, you know, like someone cuts me off. I had road rage inside the car. People ever heard me inside my vehicle? Yeah. So
whole new level.
Yep. A whole different level, man. Yeah. But it came much later. And, you know, I started bringing myself to the VA. I remember going to the VA and trying to talk to people, and they were treating me like, you know, the doctors would go, "Oh, so how you doing today, Mr. Dunning?" Yada, yada, yada. And then, "Okay, our time's up. I'll see you next." And I wasn't getting nothing out of this. So I stopped going, right? And I remember one day, about 2 months after me stopped going, that they sent a letter saying, "You need to make another appointment. You've been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder." They didn't explain nothing in the letter. I read the letter and I was like, fuck that. I'm not going back to the VA. And I threw the letter in the trash, you know. Well, needless to say, years later, ended up back in there because of issues with marriage and all that other stuff. I ended up on the flight deck. I tried to take myself out 2 times, you know.
Right.
And so eventually got into the system and got help, you know.
Yeah. But, and how was your experience with that once you got back into the system? Did the VA improve on what they were doing, or?
No, we were actually, I'm part of the people that taught them about how to deal with us. I've always been a rebel. I've always been a rebel, man. I mean, I don't keep my mouth shut. You know, I'm the one that, you know, I'm throwing the wrench in the gears. I want to have answers, you know. Yeah. I mean, the VA got tired from hearing from me, calling them up and asking them about my claim and all this other stuff. I don't play that crap. Anyways, they weren't really dealing with us at the time. I mean, the reason I'm in the first book is Leslie Lightfoot was the she was a psychotherapist at the New England Shelter for Homeless Vets. Okay. And she heard about my story, and then she had this guy that wanted to write the book, and she asked me if I would want to be in the book. She says, "I think that you would be a good person, you know, as a person of color, okay, that this guy, Paul Solotaroff, needs to talk to you." So that's how I ended up in the book, because of Leslie Lightfoot. And at that time, I was dealing with the VA. She had to come up to the VA to go to bat for me, because they weren't treating us right at that time at all, man, at the VA.
Yeah. And what years was that?
Hold on a minute. I got to plug this phone in. That was I want to say, what year was that? That was about 30 years ago. Over 30 years ago. So my son was just born. So my son's 33. Yeah. So yeah. That long ago. Yeah, they weren't treating it well at all, man.
So what were some of the, like, as over the years, right, from that point to now? I know they've come a long ways when it comes to treating PTSD and helping veterans with that. Right. But what are the things that you saw in that transition? I mean, you were involved with the VA that whole time.
Hold on a minute. I'm trying to plug this in. Hold on.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
I'll lose you in the middle of this. Okay, did that battery come on? I didn't hear the click. Yeah, I don't want to lose you here.
It's all good.
I think it's plugged in and on. Okay. All right. So what'd you say?
I was asking, since you were kind of there when the VA wasn't really doing a whole lot, or it wasn't helping, and now you look forward to today and how well that the VA has been doing and stuff like that. Like you saw in a complete transition. So, kind of talk through what you saw over the years as it progressed.
Well, because of us beefing all the time with the people, they finally realized that they had to what they call embed people from DC. Like in the Dorn VA hospital, there was a woman that showed up that they thought was just a regular clerk. Well, she ended up being the one that was going to be the head of the mental hygiene unit.
Oh,
She
wow.
came there. Yeah, she came there and hung out. Nobody knew who she was. And then she sat there and took information because did you see a movie by the name of Article 99 perchance?
I may have, but I don't remember that.
It's a movie about the VA hospital, about them taking over a VA hospital and yada yada, and they had to call the police. It's called Article 99. You need to write this down. Article 99. It's about VA hospitals, and it's about one VA hospital that got taken over by the veterans, okay, because the head of the hospital was not doing the proper thing by the veterans, okay?
Right.
It had all the parodies that happened in the VA system in it. And it was released during the time when Clinton was coming into office, where they were thinking about making the VA system part of national health care. I don't know if you know this, but at one time they had thought about that. Okay. Well, this movie fucking came out, man. Okay. During that time, it didn't stay in mainstream too long because of all of the issues that it had in the movie.
Right.
Okay.
It starts
out with a guy coming from Maine because he has a heart problem, going to and it was in the Jamaica Plain VA in Boston, actually, that this part of the movie happened. And he comes into the hospital from Maine to see the doctors, and he's standing in a line, and he's standing behind some guy that's having a conversation with a woman that's a black dude. And the nurse is behind, and he goes, "What do you mean I need to bring proof? Sir, I keep telling you, you need to bring proof to file your claim." He goes, "Proof? You want proof?" He's talking, and he's taking off his prosthetic leg, and he starts beating it on the table. "Here's your goddamn proof. Here's your," and the next thing you know, one of the rent-a-cops shows up, and then the fight breaks out.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how the movie starts.
Yeah.
It's a pretty deep movie, man. I mean, really, you should, for your own knowledge, you should get it and look at it. It's called Article 99. Yeah. Anyways, the VA at the time, we had a lot of issues with the VA. I was part of the people that helped, to train them. In fact, the guy that asked me, I was smoking marijuana. I was on a flight deck. He said, "You do drugs?" I go, "Yeah, man, I've done drugs." So what kind of drugs you do? I told him, "Man, I've tried everything, I was a pothead in Vietnam. I wasn't a grogger. I didn't drink fucking Jack Daniels. I smoked herb there,
Yeah.
But everybody else drank Jack Daniels or Johnny Walker Red. Out in the bush, they would carry a canteen of Johnny Walker. I mean, it's weird, man, So he says to me, "Yeah, so would you start using marijuana?" I says, I started using it in Vietnam. He goes, "You started using me? You've been using, did you use marijuana?" I says, "No." He says, "Something, this is my professional opinion. You don't have a PTSD problem. You have a marijuana problem." I looked at the guy and I says, "Oh, really? Well, then, you know what? I don't want to talk to you no more, because honestly, when I smoke herb, it makes me calm and relaxed. Okay, I do it because it helps to calm me down and relax me, man. So you're telling me I have a problem from that? The fuck? I don't want to talk to you no more." And that's the kind of issues they were dual diagnosing us, because a lot of guys got kicked out because of alcohol problems, and all that stuff back in the day. I mean, now they check us out. I know that, but back in the day, man, no. People were getting kicked out because of alcohol issues and fighting and all this other crap. And they were dual diagnosis. And once they dual diagnosed us, they, they had to deal with the other issues supposedly before they could
Mhm.
treat you for PTSD, which is a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
You
Because
know,
really, a lot of times, and not always, but a lot of times with PTSD, because of that, you're coping by doing other things.
right?
So
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly. So yeah, things have changed quite a bit since I got involved. I mean, I've been involved with some things that helped to change things around too. How
yeah.
I got to working for the VA was going back to school at University of South Carolina, and I remember going to Dr. Doyle because I was seeing my PTSD doctor, and
Hmm.
I was saying, "What's work study, Dr. Doyle?" And he says, "Work study means you can go to work." As a matter of fact, Jim Beats, get in here. And guy, he was a social worker. He
Hmm.
says, "This is your next employee," and that's how I ended up working at the mental hygiene unit.
Wow.
And I helped a lot of guys get their thing. I was the guy that was the inside guy. You know what I mean? I used to
Yeah.
have a badge that said mental hygiene on it, and
Uh-huh.
I'd be in the PTSD meeting with my because I was happy to be working that day. So the meeting happened on the Friday, so I would come into the meeting, and the guys would look at me and go, "Wait a minute, the fuck, what's that?" And I'd say, "Well, I work here." What? How you work here? You got issues too. You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I have issues, man, but you know what? It's a good thing because I can help you guys because I can get the proof that you need and the records. And so I was the guy that helped to do that. I helped to get their records and the proof that they need to file their claims with the VA.
Uh-huh.
And, I was the inside guy, so to speak.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure helped a lot of guys doing that. It's always good to have somebody on the inside,
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
and it's what I always tell people. It's connections. You
Yeah.
know,
It is the connections.
so you got to. Yeah, it's not always what you know; it's who you know.
It's who you know exactly. I mean, the outreach programs was because of Vietnam veterans not wanting to go to the VA hospital that they realized,
Yeah,
well, you know about the outreach programs that they had at that time.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I don't know if they still have them now, but they were big then that they would open these like storefront type of veteran outreach, and then
Hmm.
finally the VA caught wind to it and says, you know what, we need to make these outreaches part of the VA. So the people that are running them, they need to be a liaison officer. And the first person that I met, his name was John Doyle, and he was a corpsman. Okay, and
Okay.
he was the head of the outreach program in Boston that I was going
Hmm.
to. That's
Okay.
how I first came into the system, was through the outreach program actually.
Wow. Well, it sounds like that was a good program then. I mean,
Yeah, it was yeah, it was needed. It
mhm.
was much needed.
Yeah. So since you've gotten out, right? Kind of is there anything you want to kind of talk about, like life after service that you've been doing? Like, where are you? Those types of things, like where, just kind of walk through that.
Yeah, I got medevac. Okay, well, I ended up getting medevac out of Vietnam. All
Okay.
right, 5 months in, I got hit again. Up in Quezon when we were at Quezon, and I ended up getting medevac to Japan. You could
Okay.
choose a place you go. So I got medevac to Atsugi Naval Air Station. I stood the same watch that Lee Harvey Oswald stood. I was part of the.
No kidding.
Yeah, man. Oh yeah. In
Wow.
fact, they have in Atsugi, Japan. They have an underwater nuclear storage area at the end of the airstrip.
Hmm.
Okay. The Blackbird used to touch and go landing all at night. All right, and they had the
Wow.
Marines' job was not just to guard the airs just for the base. It was our job really was to guard that underwater nuclear storage area that they had at the end of it.
Hmm.
And was like what 3 days on, 4 days off kind of thing.
Oh wow.
Um, they called us the Keystone Cops. They had an ambulance that the bell went off like school. We would have to rush down there, rush downstairs with our gear, jump in the ambulance, and the ambulance would charge out to the end of the airstrip. Seconds before we got there, we locked and loaded. It was always a live drill,
Wow.
where we would pull a 360 around that area. Anything that was out there was going to get shot when we went out. It
Holy
was always
cow.
a live drill. Okay, and
Yeah.
they had they had they had 3 centuries. They had one inside of a pillbox. They had 12-foot fences with concertina wire. One, then you come in the pillbox, and then you let you into an inside area that he walked around, and then let you through another gate, and then there was an interior area. And I was the one that had the interior area. And I remember sitting on a bunker looking at a flagpole at night, and all the names carved on it. And I got down to eye level, and I looked, and it said Lee Harvey Oswald. I was like, get the fuck out of Dodge, man.
Wow.
Yep.
That's
and in the
crazy.
movie JFK, they mentioned Lee Harvey Oswald being at Atsugi Naval Air Station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You stood that post.
Yeah. You had to have a top secret clearance to be on Atsugi. Well, you had to have at least a minimum of secret clearance in the Marine Corps to stand guard duty. A top secret clearance is which I got to be out there at the underwater nuclear storage area.
Yeah. Wow. That's very interesting. And then how long were you there doing that?
I was in Japan for 8 months.
8 months.
So my re-indoctrination back to the world, bro, was through Japan, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah.
You know,
what was that like for you? Yeah. What was that like? That transition?
It made me who I am. It was very calming. You know, I mean, being around the people, it's hard to. I don't know if you've ever been to Japan.
I have, yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about. You know, I mean, it was wonderful for me, man. It was wonderful for me. Okay, and it kind of brought all of that anxiety and all that stuff down. It wasn't until I came back to the United States through Travis Air Force Base in San Francisco. I came and I had my uniform spit on. There were demonstrations going on. Okay, really, man, it was like unbelievable when I got back to the States. Then, you know, I was one of the guys that got spit on called the baby killer.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
so
absolutely horrible. You know, I was talking to somebody just recently on a podcast about that specifically, and we were saying that nowadays how it is, and the welcome home that people get now is the welcome home that you guys should have got, which you come back from Vietnam.
Yeah,
which did.
Yep. Actually, the guy that wrote the book, Paulo Solotaro, I'm talking to him, and when I agreed to do the book, he says, "Okay, Ron, well, I'm glad you want to do the book. Well, I'm going to tell you why I'm writing this book." He says, "I was one of the guys that was out there standing as a demonstrator when you came back from Vietnam. And so this is my way of giving back."
No kidding.
No kidding, bro. I mean, when he said that to me, I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. I'm sitting there like, you know, after saying, yeah, it's like, wow. He says, so how do you feel about that? I says, man, I'm glad you told me that after the fact, because if you had mentioned that before the fact, I wouldn't be still sitting here with you.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it really affected me that much. It really did. But yeah, that's why I'm in the first book, House of the Purple Hearts. Paul Solotaro, who was one of the demonstrators that was standing out there. And so he's always wanted to write a book to give back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's really cool. At least he had to change your heart about it and kind of look back and just, you know, recognize what was happening was not necessarily the right thing. So that's good.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you mentioned too, the welcome home. I can't, every time someone says welcome home to me and they're a civilian, you know, when a brother says it, I get it. You know what I mean? I get it. When a fellow brother says it to me, anybody that's been served that's a veteran to me is a brother, man. Okay, that's how I look at it. Okay, but when a civilian says it to me, I feel weird. I don't know what to say to them. It's, oh, you were in Vietnam. Thank you for your service. I don't know what to say to them. Oh, thank you. I don't know. It makes me feel uncomfortable, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
You know, it really does.
You should just take it. I mean, you deserve it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I do. You know, I'm just giving you some private, you know.
Yeah.
Every time I hear it, it kind of just, I accept it, you know. I mean, I've had people buy me dinners and all that, but it just feels kind of odd, you know. It's like, wow, okay. Anyway, yeah.
I could definitely understand that, because I kind of feel the same way when people are, you know, they say something, oh, okay, yeah, thank you. And because for me, it's like, oh, I didn't really do, you know, a whole lot, whatever. It's not a big deal. And, you know, so that's kind of how I think about it. But you're right. Like, it's completely different coming from one of your brothers, right? Or,
Yeah. Yeah, welcome home, man. I mean, I say that to Desert Storm dudes, man. I mean, I've met people that it's like, it's a good feeling to welcome a fellow brother, home and stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
But anyway,
yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. Very cool. So, now where are you currently? You're down
police.
Belize. That's right. Yeah, yeah. So, how did you end up down that way?
From a friend of mine that I met in Japan. 16 years later, I got a chance to go back to Japan.
Okay.
I went there actually within the same week that Ronald Reagan got elected.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I don't know nothing from nothing about Reagan in the United States because I stayed in Japan for 10 years.
Wow.
I called my mom on the phone. Mom, Reagan got elected and I'm going to Japan. I'm out of here.
So,
Yeah.
how and did you enjoy your time there in Japan?
I loved it, man. I stayed 10 years. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. So, I went to Japan and lived there and came back to the States, and the shit didn't really happen until I came back to the States, I mean, when I came back, and that's when a lot of stuff was going on and stuff surfaced. They say the shit floats to the surface. It does. As you get older and stuff, it floats up to the surface.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. So you came back to the States after Japan, and then how long were you in the States at that point before you?
So I came to Bali. Well, I met a guy in Japan. His name was Babe. That's how I ended up here. I met a guy in Japan over 30 years ago, and his name is Cyril. And so we kept friends over the years when I left Japan. And then one day I hadn't heard from him for about 2 or 3 years. And then I hear from him, and he tells me that he's moving from San Francisco to Belize. I've worn all kinds of hats, man. I build houses, and I'm a jeweler and goldsmith, and I do pottery and all kinds of stuff. I've done all kinds of stuff in my life. And anyways, he knew I was building houses at the time. So he says, I want you to build my house when I buy some land in Belize. And so yada, yada. Time goes by, and then finally I get in touch with him and say, what's going on, man? And he says, oh, you can come down now. Well, little did I know the house was already built when I came down. Okay. And so he didn't tell me, he didn't tell me. So he said, yeah, come on to Belize, because I was ready to get out of the States, it's just ready to leave. Trump was Trump elected then? I'm not sure, but I was just ready to leave the States. And so I came to Belize. He picked me up, and I'm driving. Belize is like, the jungle is like, they got places here in Belize, man, that looks just like Vietnam.
Really?
Yes. Oh yeah. Marines come here to train jungle warfare. The Navy, I mean, the English, because it was British Honduras, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've met British troops over here. They come here to train in jungle warfare training here in Belize. Wow. Yeah, it looks just like Vietnam. In fact, he picks me up from the airport, and we're traveling down what they call the Hummingbird Highway, and I'm looking at the sides of the mountains and stuff with all the bush, and I go quiet on him, Yeah. And so he says, hey, Ron, are you all right? And I'm staring out the window, and I'm going, man, honestly, I'm not all right now. It's funny you asked me that. He says, what's going on? I says, bro, I mean, I haven't seen bush like this since I left Vietnam, and this shit is fucking me up, man. Yeah. He's like, really? But so when my first experience coming back to Belize, it was like a weird one, but it felt good because I had to change my mindset, Yeah. I mean, I was staring at the bush, looking, you know what I mean? Searching, because I'm having these intrusive thoughts come in. But in the back of my head, it's like, I'm not hearing any gunfire. I'm not hearing any distant pops. I'm not hearing any of that, Martin. You're in a safe zone, Ron. You're cool. And so after a while, I got to love it. I love it here. I mean, the bush is beautiful here. Yeah. It took a minute, but it's beautiful. There's a place on the they call it the coastal road that looks exactly like Vietnam, exactly, with the mountains and everything. And they have elephant grass here. I remember going down a road and having to pull to a stop. People in the car, we took a back road coming out of Hopkins, and all of a sudden I stopped, and the guy's going, why you stop? And I'm like, man, I need to. Anybody got a joint or something? Because I, I need to calm down right now. They go, what's wrong, Ron? I go, man, up ahead of this road, you guys don't understand. But it came to a point. It was a dirt road, and it came to a point where the elephant grass came right up next to the road, where I had to go through this patch of grass. It's like, no, I'm not driving any further here. This shit. Yeah, but Belize is nice. Belize is nice. So I came here because I stayed for 5 weeks. I liked it. I told him that I might be coming back. Went back. Shit went bad with a relationship, so I came back. Came back here 30 days before the pandemic. The pandemic hit, and I was like, "Wow, well, this isn't a bad place to be locked down." You know, God has been on my shoulder. I have a guardian angel, man. I really do.
Yeah.
He's he put me in places that quite often where I dodge another bullet. So I dodged the pandemic bullet because I have bronchitis, I'm bronchial, and I'm sure I would have been a statistic because I had pneumonia and bronchitis at 3 years old. So, it's jacked me up. I can't get colds or flus. I get really bad with a cold or a flu.
Right.
So I've never left. I got here 30 days before the pandemic hit and haven't left.
Wow. So what do you do down there? You just hang out or?
Just chill.
What's that?
I just chill.
Very nice. So you just got to take in the sights, go visit, and
I just
enjoy life.
I mean, I was Uncle Sam finally did the right thing by me and gave me my 100% totally and permanent. I caused changes on that too because they didn't want to give it to me, and I had to have my case go to DC, and they reprimanded it back to the Dorn VA and told them to do their job. I mean, things got shook up. That woman that showed up at the VA hospital, because of people like me and stuff that were complaining, and so the Dorn VA changed their whole system around. So they gave me my 100% totally and permanent. I walked out of my CNP because they had hired some doctor to come in to interview me, and she asked me the first question, pissed me off. She had a folder like this that she's looking at. I have volumes, man. I have volumes in my medical records, volumes. So I came from Boston to South Carolina, and when she said, I'm looking at her, she's looking at my papers, and she says, "Okay, Mr. Dunning, so were you wounded?" Right away, that fucking did it. I was like, "Excuse me?"
Yeah.
She goes, "Were you wounded, Mr. Dunning?" I go, wait a minute. Are those my medical records there? What's that you got there? These are your medical records. Those aren't my medical records. I said, "Did you read my medical records?" I mean, really, I went off on her. I went the fuck off on her, man. Because I wounded. Are you kidding me? Okay, so after about 3 or 4 she goes, "You seem like to be a little bit agitated." I go, "I am agitated. You're asking me a question about if I've been wounded? I mean, I'm saying this is supposed to be in my mind. This is supposed to be a CMP examination, okay? And this person she hasn't even read my medical records. What the fuck? I'm out of here." She says, "So Mr. Dunn, you seem to be a little bit upset." I go, "I am upset. I really don't want to talk to you anymore. You're sitting up here, you're telling me that's my medical records. That's not my medical records. As far as I'm concerned, I don't want to talk to you no more." And I got up and left. Well, that didn't sit well with the VA hospital, but I happened to have a representative that was working at a DAV. There's a former Marine. His name is Stan Lohr. And I called Stan, and he helped me write a letter, to the VA. That letter went all the way to the fucking top, man. Okay. When I got if I found it here and I was read it to you, you'd laugh because in the letter it says, "Okay, in normal circumstances," the justice was, "in normal circumstances, when a person, you can't just call it into your own CMP examination." Okay. One. Okay. So that doesn't fly with us. But because we understand that you might have been going through some anniversary date problems and stuff like that, we're going to grant you your 100%. Okay. Totally and permanent. So basically, they sided on my side because they understood that I was, my PTSD was acting up. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but
Very interesting. Wow. Well, that's awesome. So you're down there. You're just loving life, and
I
that's
love life,
awesome.
man. Every day is a blessing here. Yeah. I mean, Uncle
Yeah.
Sam's money carries a long way here in Belize. You know,
yeah,
maybe
sure.
I'm able to live. I have a 1-bedroom apartment that I pay $1,000 US a month. You know,
Okay.
I pay another maybe a couple $100 for electricity, water, and internet and all that. And then it costs me maybe $5, $6, $8 a day to eat.
Wow, that is awesome. Yeah, definitely much better than here.
Yeah.
So the the prices here are a little bit more.
Oh man, I could never actually on what I get from the VA every month, I couldn't live in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah,
It would
I
go
can
to
see
rent.
that.
Yeah, we go to rent.
Yeah.
You know.
So you know, we're gonna wrap it up here a little bit, but what advice would you give your fellow veterans, you know, based off your life experience, your military service, and then life after? What types of advice would you have for your fellow veterans out there?
That's a good question. I would say that my veterans out there, that I would stick to it. You know, I mean, like it's going to get better. You know, but you know, stay in the system, on network, and hang around your brothers, and try to you know, communicate more about what's going on inside. You know, don't keep it to yourself. You know, you have to let it out to be able to air it, and life does get better. You know. That's a hard question, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a hard question, but seek help, you know, if you have issues, definitely seek help. I know they got a lot of things in play now, thanks to people like myself that have helped to change the way the VA system is, you know.
Very true.
You know.
Yeah. And there, one of the big things is veteran suicide. And they've got, I mean, so much dedicated to that. I mean, I think the last numbers that I saw was like 24 veterans a day.
What?
That 24 veterans a day are committing suicide.
Wow.
I don't know. That's the last number I heard. It used to be 21, 22. I think it's 22. Wow. But yeah, and that's supposedly the average, you know. So, but they have dedicated a lot of money and a lot of efforts into helping prevent suicide.
Wow. Yeah, when I went back to school, I remember doing a paper. At the time, I remember doing the paper. There were more people that committed suicide than were on the wall.
Wow.
Yep.
That's
there
amazing.
were more Vietnam veterans that had committed suicide that were on the wall. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Good. And that's,
you know, I did myself, man. I mean, like the thing is, okay, I don't know if it's because I got a buddy here. He's a Vietnam veteran. He's a Belizean. I got one Vietnam brother here, right in this village that I'm staying at, and he's a Belizean. Okay, he was in Air Cal when he was moving and stuff, and he has issues too, you know. And so, you know, we gravitate to one another. We reach out to one another. I would say to a brother that if he was having problems, reach out to another brother, man. You know, reach out anytime. Like someone could call me anytime and tell me, hey, man, I need to talk, you know. But yeah, man, I mean, Mike told me that he tried. I tried 2 times. And I think the reason is like, you know, over there, we used to have a saying, fuck it, 2 tears in a bucket. Don't mean a thing, you know, don't mean a thing, you know. And because we've come so close to death, and see, death doesn't mean anything to us. We're not scared of death. If you get my drift, it's like,
that makes sense.
You know, so and you get to the point where you get frustrated. You go, man, you know, fuck this shit. You know, what? You know, I didn't go through all that to put up with all this crap here. I'd rather fucking take my shit out, and that's how the feeling goes. You know, that's how it is. That's how it happens. You know, sometime in my case, it was after a conversation with my son's mother. And I had flipped on her because she had said something that caused me to flip. And I grabbed her. And when I grabbed her, I realized that I did the wrong thing. And she said, I can't believe that you could kill. So I wasn't going to kill her. You know, I wasn't going to kill her. but what came out of her mouth affected me. This is when I
Yeah.
was early on into the stage of learning about PTSD. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she said that, I went into when I thought about that, I was like, wow, man, that's really fucked up. Wow, man. She said, I can't believe you could just kill somebody so easily. And I was like, what the hell? I had a bottle of lorazepam, and I was sitting in the bathroom, and I'm thinking, man, if I'm that fucked up, I don't need to be here no more. Fuck that. And I took the whole bottle. I woke up in the hospital shitting black.
Wow.
So that was the first time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just that thing that flipped me. If I'm that bad, then the hell with that, man, you know? Because I don't want to hurt nobody, you know? I'd rather not.
Yeah.
If I'm that, I'd rather just take myself out. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's weird how people have those thoughts. Mike's told me too. He says, man, you know, sometimes I get so frustrated, Ron, that, you know, tired of arguing with the wife or trying to this bullshit or that bullshit. I get tired, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I say, yeah, Mike, I feel you. I get tired too, man. But we gotta, you know, we're here for a reason, bro. You know, we gotta keep doing it because of the brothers that we left behind, man. You know, we survived for a reason, man. You know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Wow.
I know that I touched on a lot of stuff with you because I have a lot of stuff inside of me. Okay.
Yeah.
It couldn't be covered in a 2-hour podcast yet. That's what I'm saying. Like the people, I need to write my own book, and I think I'm here in Belize, and eventually I'm going to sit down and start writing and go, because honestly, I've been approached by people that have, like the person that, you know, both books. I mean, this book here, there's 28 pages. The book has 100. It's got 100 and okay, it's got 186 pages in it. I got 28 pages in this book.
Yeah.
Okay.
You should write it.
You know, yeah, I am, man. I think I am, because like people have come to me and they've, you know, for me to be in their book, that, you know, my story has been interesting enough for them to want to write about it. So,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, definitely. When you write your book, reach out to me. We'll have you back on the podcast. We can talk about the book.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm sorry that I can kind of tend to, you know, float a little bit. I mean, I don't mean to do that to you, bro. But yeah, you wanted to record the other half, right?
We just did.
We just did?
Yeah, it was recording the whole time.
Is that right? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
We've just been talking. So
cool.
I think that's good. You know,
yeah.
And I would tell you, if you're comfortable, I'll just share this part of our conversation.
Yeah. I actually, you know, having it that way, it did feel more natural to me for you to ask me in that way without me knowing that you're recording, because you know, it kind of feels a little bit odd having someone ask questions. This is actually my first third interview. You know, when I talked to the people about the book, it was pretty much the same way. When she went away, she was like, "Holy cow, Ron! You know what? I don't know where to begin." You know?
Yeah. But hey, well, with that, I will tell you, thank you for coming on and sharing your story. Thanks for sharing kind of some very personal things. And I'm sure there are many, many veterans out there that have been in your situation and have actually thought about hurting themselves or have even tried, just like you. But thanks for sharing that. And I appreciate you coming on. It's a fantastic story. I may have to have you come back on another time anyway, because I want to hear about, was it your dad? Or no, your dad and your uncle? Is that right?
Yeah, my uncle was the first black man to graduate from MIT with an aeronautical engineering degree. He went on to become vice president of McDonnell Douglas Aircraft. My dad graduated from a university in Georgia with a electronics degree. He went to work for Douglas McDonnell Aircraft too. He was the electronics troubleshooter for DC-9s, DC-8s, and the SAT missile system.
Yeah,
you know?
Man.
I worked for the company too. When I came back from Vietnam, my uncle was already vice president, and my dad was working. Another uncle was working for the company, and then he says, "You know, you should work for Douglas." So I went up and applied because I had a top secret clearance. I worked in the military publication book layout department. Okay, with my top secret clearance. So I worked for the company too for a minute. Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
that's actually, that part is in this book. All of that
Oh,
is
okay.
in, when she heard all of that stuff, she's like, holy cow, man. You know, you never know who you meet and who's behind the person that, or the face that you meet. When I told her
Yeah.
about my uncle, she's like, what? You know, get out of here. It's like, yeah, you know. So my dad was in England. I got pictures of my family were part of the B-25 bomber crews. I have relatives that were in Army Air over in England, and they had red-tailed B-25s that never flew in combat. There were black bomber crews that have never flown in combat during the war. And this for the same reason why they didn't let the Tuskegee Airmen first into the war, you know, the racism and stuff. So yeah, my dad kind of matter-of-factly told me that one. So yeah, that would be something that I'm sure people would probably want to hear about.
Absolutely. Yeah. I find it all fascinating and very interesting. You're right. You never know. Like I always tell people, everyone's veteran story is important because you never know what's going to come out, you know, and it could be something small to somebody and they're like, yeah, it's not a big deal. And then, you know, it's a huge thing. And you're like, whoa, man, that's insane, you know? But that's why I think every veteran story is important. That's why we should share it, you know?
Yeah. I I believe in that too, man. I really do. I mean, networking and you know, we're the reason why we can continue, because we're able to network and you know, beef each other up.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Well, hey, I'm going to wrap this one up here. Hey, Ron, thanks for coming on and doing this. I truly appreciate it. To all the listeners out there, if you're struggling and you're thinking about hurting yourself, reach out for help. You can dial 988, press option 1. That's going to put you in contact with somebody on the veterans, the VA website that's going to be able to help you. You can also text 838-255. Again, that's 838-255. Somebody, again, will be there to help you. Or if you'd rather chat online, you could go to veteranscrisisline.net, and there's a chat icon. You can get on there and chat. But from me to you, I care about you. I know Ron cares about you. All the veterans community cares about you. So please, please, please reach out for help. And with that, Ron, thanks again for coming on. It's been fantastic hearing your story. And to all the listeners out there, stay motivated, change your socks.